was saying, who's going to read the scripture? And Ethan said, I'll read it. And I was like, okay. If you can read it right now, then you can read it. And so he read it. It's pretty cool. So, if I'm honest, this scripture reminds me of the TV show Grimm. It's not church appropriate, and I'm not endorsing it. Start by saying that. But I will tell you a little bit about it. It's a TV series that's loosely based on the Brothers Grimm, and in the show there are monsters that look just like people to everyone else. But to the descendants of the Brothers Grimm, their true identities are revealed. So this scripture is kind of like the opposite of that. Because we have human eyes, we can't see the divinity in other people or know the lessons that they are here to teach us. And so we have to approach everyone as if they were an angel. But I digress. That was my geek moment for the night, and now I'm done. Moving on. Do you know that 1 in 5 people, if given the option, would check none for their religion? And if you go under 30, it's 1 in 3. There's an Episcopal priest named Lillian Daniel that I follow on social media because I think she's really cool. And she says that there are 4 types of nuns. N-O-N-E, not nuns. The first is the no ways. These are people who are mad at church, they've been hurt, they've been forced to go as kids maybe, and they've had a bad experience in church and there's no way they're going back. The second is the no longers. These are people that weren't really hurt by church necessarily, but something circumstantial happened in their life. Maybe their kids went off to college or got done with confirmation, and they just weren't as interested in going anymore. They never stayed connected, and they didn't really miss church. Then there are the never haves. These are the ones who've never experienced religious community before. They're not mad at the church, they've just never really had a relationship with it. These are the adult children of the no ways and the no longers. The kids that just didn't grow up in church. And then there are the not yets. The not yets are the ones that would come if they were invited or if they saw a value in religious community. They don't see that yet. And so we have to show that to them. I'd like to tell you though, that all 4 of the types of nuns have something to teach us. Paul in this scripture is writing to a community that were Jews converted to Christ followers who were struggling with how to welcome Gentiles, who were at the very least never Jewish, and most of them had been pagan, worshiping many gods in the Roman world. Paul is saying to them, be kind. Don't try to make everyone see everything just like you. You don't know who it is that you're meeting, and you don't know what it is that they have to teach you. He's saying, don't teach these strangers how to be like you. Show them hospitality. When an angel showed up in the Bible, what were they usually doing? They were usually delivering a message. They had something to tell us, something to teach us. In fact, the Hebrew word that is translated to angel most often in the Bible means God's messenger. Entertaining angels, unaware. What would our life be like if we approached every new person that we met as someone from whom we could learn something? It is a responsibility. Every time the Bible talks about a stranger, it was always the work of the host to make that person feel welcome. It's a responsibility that we have to show love and hospitality to strangers. But what would it take? I think it would take at least 3 things. And the first is an open mind. It takes an open mind to be willing to enter into a relationship with new people. Again, people who may not look like us or sound like us. Maybe they're not App fans. Maybe they're not Clemson fans. Whatever it is that you love. Maybe they don't love it. Maybe they don't like sports at all, or music at all, or dance at all. Can we still be friends or learn something from people that we don't think we have anything in common with? It takes intentionality too. in order to be welcoming, especially when we are somewhere that we consider home. We have to make an effort to make people feel welcome. And we do a pretty good job of that here at Chestnut Grove. But what about when we aren't here? Are you welcoming elsewhere? Do you make a conscious effort to remember that you are always an ambassador for Christ, even when you aren't here in these hallowed halls? And lastly, it takes humility. It takes humility to admit that you don't know everything already, and that this new person who may not be dressed like you, who may be much younger than you or much older than you, could actually be God's messenger and here to teach you something. Evelyn set forth a challenge to us several months back to do the meal. And I hope that you had the joy of that experience of hospitality. And maybe it wasn't your thing. Maybe it was difficult for you. And I'm here to tell you that brotherly love and welcoming a stranger doesn't have to be difficult. In fact, you should be welcoming in a way that is comfortable for you and not in a way that's completely foreign. You know me. If you've ever heard me preach a sermon, you've probably heard me say that God calls us to be pulled out of our comfort zones, that faith calls us to be uncomfortable, and that I believe. But there's some balance to be said for being welcoming. If you are completely uncomfortable, it's hard for you to make someone else feel comfortable. God has given us each a set of skills that we're already inclined toward. Now we can develop other skills. I have pastor friends that used to be very shy and still are pretty introverted in their personal lives, but they understood the call placed on their lives, and they honed the skill of public speaking and being open to groups of people. My point is that your warm welcome to a stranger is going to be different from someone else's warm welcome to a stranger, and that's okay. Don't put pressure on yourself to do something that's not you. Find what is you and do that. In fact, very often, the very most welcoming thing that we can do, the most loving thing that we can do to care for someone else that we do know or that we don't know is to listen to them. In this world of rushing around and in our overcommitments and our lack of time, I would venture to say that the most important thing that you can give to anyone is your time and your attention. Not just at church, but in every part of our lives. Are we welcoming to that person that you're standing in line behind at the grocery store who's taking too long and clearly has 15 items in the 12 items or less line? To the person who you may judge a little bit. Maybe they've got some type of assistance that you don't think that they deserve with their brand new phone. Maybe they have more children than you're comfortable with and they're not wearing a wedding ring, and one of the children is melting down right now. Are you welcoming to them? Are you loving to them? Or are you standing there with your 10 items in the 12 items or less line, judging them? That one was rough, I know. I knew I was going to step on some tests. Besides, what could that stranger possibly have to teach us? You might be surprised what a single mom could teach us about budgeting and multitasking and compassion. Things I'm having to learn myself right now. What about at a restaurant that you haven't been to before? It's crowded and the food is taking forever. Are you kind to the server, or do you get impatient with him or her? Is there something that this recent high school graduate could teach you? I don't know. But I do know that you will never know if you cannot be welcoming. The word hospitality simply means love of strangers. When you reframe your thinking to that, it's easy to see that this responsibility goes beyond when you're in your own home or in your own church. And instead, it is your responsibility to love strangers everywhere. And here's the kicker, even when you're the stranger, even when you are out of your comfort zone, you are still to be compassionate, welcoming, loving, willing to take the faithful steps necessary to love others. I can tell you I'm not always good at it. Especially lately, I get wrapped up in my own head and my own stuff, and I'm just not interested in anyone else. But, see, that's when it's most important that we're open to hearing what others have to say. We're in the midst of struggle. That's when God is trying the hardest to speak to us. If there's one thing that I hope people know about me, one thing I hope they say at my funeral, write this down, it was that I was a sponge, that I soaked up knowledge, and that I always looked for ways to grow and learn. I love learning. If funds would allow it, I would be in school for the rest of my life. And we are all here to teach each other and to grow together. We can remember what Jesus said about the judgment of nations when he welcomed those on his right side. One of the things that he mentions is, I was a stranger and you welcomed me. Entertaining angels, listening for God's message. During our last song, I want you, if you can, maybe in this room, to find someone that you don't know too well. Take the time that we're in this song to tell them something about you. Someone that's different from you in your age or how long they've been at this church. Tell them your favorite thing to do, or a song you really like, something you're excited about, something you'd like to learn. And then let them share something with you. Let's do it.